Today's episode has been brought to you by OfferingTree. Have you heard of OfferingTree yet? It's what I use to register students for my online classes, workshops, and trainings. OfferingTree is an amazing company who is actually listening to what yoga teachers and studios need. Go to offeringtree.com/Shannon for a special podcast listener discount. Today's episode is also brought to you by two workshops that are happening soon. Let me tell you about those. October the 24th, I'm leading a 3.5-hour workshop. It's called Yoga for Pelvic Health. We are going to cover the foundational pelvic health information that I hope all yoga teachers know. So just this week, I heard of a yoga teacher who asked if men also have a pelvic floor. So the quick answer is yes, and it's super important that we know the anatomy and how the anatomy works of the entire pelvic region. So this workshop will cover all of the basics for you. You can sign up at pelvichealthprofessionals.com. And if you're missing the live version, if you're listening to this after October of 2022, not to worry, we are going to have this as an on-demand because this is something I feel very passionate about, and I hope all yoga teachers have this information. Another workshop coming up soon is happening November the 3rd. I am so excited that Jessica and Alyssa, who we recently heard from on the podcast a couple episodes back, they are going to be doing a workshop called Blurred Lines, the harmful intersection of diet culture and yoga. This is a must for all yoga teachers who really want to work to take diet culture out of yoga because it's harmful. And it is everywhere right now in the yoga world. Once you see it, you will not be able to unsee how it is getting into so many of the yoga spaces. So let's figure out how, as yoga teachers, we can keep it out of our immediate yoga spaces so that we're not causing more harm with our cues and our language. To sign up for that, you can go to theconnectedyogateacher.com/anti-diet or go to the show notes for today's episode. Hello and welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. My pronouns are she, her. This podcast is being recorded on Anishinaabeg, Odawa, and Mississauga land, also called the Bruce Peninsula in Ontario, Canada. If you are new here, I'm so glad that you found the podcast, and you might not know that I'm also a mom of 3, a yoga teacher, and founder of Pelvic Health Professionals. If you are a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back. You know the drill here. This podcast was created for you, the yoga teacher, so that each and every week you can be connected to the information and inspiration that will support you as you are building your yoga business. Because I get it. Leaving yoga teacher training and jumping out into the world of teaching and running a business, it can be and feel so confusing at times. So the podcast is here for you to make things a little less confusing, a little less complicated. I am super excited about today's topic. So in this day of websites and social media, we all know the power of good images. But many yoga teachers don't know where to start when it comes to taking photos for their yoga business. How can you capture who you are as a yoga teacher? What kinds of photos connect you to your ideal yoga students? What should you wear in a photo shoot? Where's the best place to do this? These are all common questions yoga teachers have, and I'm so excited because Gabby Fearn is here today with a lot of answers and tips. Gabriela, also known as Gabby Fearn, is a portrait photographer, doula, and yoga teacher with over 10 years of experience, who's based in Sydney, Australia. Through the years, Gabby has photographed many yoga studios and teachers, and she ensures a stress-free experience by guiding her clients through the process every step of the way while capturing both authentic and sincere photos. In this practical podcast episode, you are going to walk away with a list of takeaways to help you book, plan, and carry out a yoga photo shoot that makes marketing easier. Gabby talks about the pros and cons of indoor versus outdoor photo shoots, why having a plan is helpful and how to make that plan, considerations around props, music, hair, makeup, and much, much more. Gabby also explains why using just stock photos isn't a great idea and why you shouldn't wait until you look better or can do better yoga to take some professional photos. I'm so excited to dig in, so let's meet Gabby. Welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast, Gabby. It's so great to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. I'm a longtime podcast listener.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm really excited that you reached out and that we're going to talk about how to plan a yoga photo shoot. It's actually been something that I wanted to talk about on the podcast for a while.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and we just haven't. So when I saw your note come in about it, I thought, oh my gosh, we have to do this. But before we do that, can you tell us what is the work that you do and who do you do it for?
Yeah. So I'm Gabby. I am a photographer. I'm a portrait photographer. So I photograph yoga teachers, obviously, as well as families. I do newborn sessions, maternity sessions. And I'm also a yoga teacher. I've been a yoga teacher for over 10 years, and I specialize in pre and postnatal yoga. And I'm also a doula. I don't doula quite as much as the other two, photography and yoga teaching, take up most of my time.
So which came first, teaching yoga or doing photography?
Good question. Professionally, teaching yoga came first, but I was always obsessed with photography and had been that girl who always had a camera with her and was always taking a million photos for as long as I can remember. And I did courses as a teenager, like darkroom and film photography courses. My dad was an amazing photographer, so he always encouraged me and he bought me my first camera. And so it'd always been a passion, but it became a business. After I had already been teaching yoga for a couple of years.
So you are also a mom because you have your kids off to school now and also living in Australia, but are you Canadian living in Australia?
I sure am. Yes, I am half Colombian, half Canadian, but mostly grew up in Vancouver in Canada. And I moved to Australia to be with my boyfriend, now my husband, in 2009. So I've been here for over 13 years, but I live in Sydney. It's definitely home, but I do still feel very Canadian and I still have my accent.
Right. And so how is it there right now in Australia? We're talking at the beginning of April. What's the weather like there?
It is raining nonstop because of La Nina. So I'm lucky in Sydney that we haven't, or where I live in Sydney, that we haven't experienced flooding, but we have experienced nonstop rain. But other parts of the country have had horrific flooding, and it's just really, really devastating. And on a personal note, as a photographer, it's really stressful to look at this forecast. It's just 2 weeks of straight rain because my business is kind of weather dependent, and it's just really hard to plan things right now. It's not usually like this at this time of year. It's usually beautiful and sunny and in the 20s, 20 degrees Celsius, like 20 to 29-ish.
Right. Oh my gosh. I didn't even think about photography being a weather pending business, but of course it is. Of course it is.
It is. I mean, some of my work is inside, but honestly, most of my shoots are outside. So indoor shoots can still go ahead, but outdoor shoots right now are just really logistical nightmare of just picking a date and hoping for the best, and then having to do a lot of rescheduling because it's not just a little bit of rain. It's like proper downpour all day long.
Right. So if our yoga teachers who are listening, if they're thinking, okay, I want to do a photo shoot, how do they first choose a location? So now that we're talking about like outside, I'm thinking of where should it be? In a yoga studio, in a yoga space, outside? What do you think?
Yeah, so you really have two options. You can do an indoor session or an outdoor session. So an indoor session would be, probably at a yoga studio or a photography studio, or some people have really great practice space in their house. So that could be an option depending on what you have available to you. And so there's pros and cons of obviously both. So I'll just go into the indoors first, the indoor option. So some pros of doing an indoor session, like let's just go with a yoga studio as an example. It's more controlled, so you don't have to deal with the elements like wind and rain and changing light and all that kind of thing. It also gives your images a very clean and consistent look. So that can be good, like if you're building a website and you just want it to look really consistent. And I also find that when I'm shooting a yoga teacher in a yoga studio, we can get through more poses because we are pretty much just staying in one spot. And yeah, we don't have to deal with weather or like people in the background. So we just get through more if you have like a lot that you want to get through. Also, you as the subject are going to stand out a little bit more because there isn't anything like competing with you in the background. So other pros, nobody is going to be watching you, like if you're outside at a park, and it's easier to change because usually you're going to change outfits once or twice. Some cons, though, of being inside, you probably will have to pay to use the space. So if it's there's a yoga studio that I often use for my yoga photos, it's not that expensive, but it does add an hour, like it's an hourly rate. So that does make your photo session a bit more expensive. And you also have to reserve it in advance. So you have to, be organized with all the moving pieces. And then the con is your photos won't be as varied. They're going to be consistent, which is both a pro and a con. And then for outdoor locations like park, I'm in Sydney, so obviously we have beaches. So those are your main options are going to be a park or a beach. But sometimes people want to do you can do cool things in alleyways and more like city backgrounds if that's more your vibe. So some pros of that. Obviously, nature is beautiful and your photos are going to have really beautiful backgrounds. And your gallery of final images will be more diverse because you'll probably move around. So let's say you're at a beach, you might get some photos with the ocean in the back, and then you'll get some photos with the rocks, and then you'll get some photos with maybe there's like a park, so some grass. So you're just going to have more different backgrounds, more options. Some people feel more comfortable and grounded in nature, so that's a pro. And then the light, usually we will shoot at sunrise or sunset, and so the light is really beautiful and golden, and you don't quite get that indoors. And then the cons for outdoor areas can be crowded. So you might feel uncomfortable if you feel like people are watching you. You might need to reserve the location, like some parks, for example. You're not meant to just go and shoot there. You are meant to have a permit. So you can look into that. Your photographer should help you with that. You might have to pay for that. And then it's a bit harder to change outfits, and you will have to deal with wind and possibly the elements, wind, rain. If your hair is down and you have long hair, it might be blowing in your face. And so just dealing with the weather can be an issue.
So you mentioned changing outfits, and I was thinking, what should we be wearing as yoga teachers? I'm thinking probably the clothing that we teach in, but are there some, don't wear this, do wear this, and also how many outfits as well?
Well, I tell my clients to have like one or two yoga outfits and then one regular outfit as in non-yoga clothes, because I will always take some more like headshots or like lifestyle photos, like maybe it's drinking a cup of tea or journaling or something like that. And I do find sometimes people show up with like 20 outfits and it's just too much and you'll get overwhelmed and it'll eat into your photo taking time. So it's just not worth it. I really think that planning your session is key to getting the most out of it and making the most of your time. So you really want to think about it in advance, and we can talk about planning more. But when it comes to outfits, you want to pick those like 1 to 2 yoga outfits and one regular outfit in advance. Maybe even like I always get people to send me photos of what they're planning to wear so I can give them tips. Or I have a client wardrobe, so I give my clients the option of wearing things that I have so they can borrow them for their yoga photos. So yeah, you do want to think about the location because certain colors are going to look better in certain places. And I love like earthy colors and neutrals. And that's, if you're like struggling with what colors match, that's a pretty good just rule of thumb, is to stick with earthy tones and neutrals, things like sage green, tan, like rust, cinnamon, like turmeric, like colors in nature. And I do think when it comes to the yoga photos, it's really important to think about your personal style and what you wear when you practice, because you don't have to wear like head to toe lycra. That's not what all of us wear when we practice. If you do, cool, that's probably going to be pretty easy to find an outfit, but there's so many other options. Do you want me to break down some outfits that you could wear?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So for like a standard yoga outfit, of course, you could wear, yoga leggings, high-waisted, look really good, with maybe a crop top or maybe a t-shirt or something. But I also love like yoga leggings, let's say in an olive green color, with like a really cozy knitted sweater, because cardigans like textures like knitwear look really nice in photos. And so do things like scarves and mala beads. They just add visual interest. So let's say you were wearing olive green leggings, you could wear like a rust colored knitted sweater. I'm used to living in Australia. Or you could do like another look that I really like is linen pants with an elastic waistband and then a looser tank top on top, or a t-shirt. Or some people want to cover their arms, so you could wear a tank top and then have like a kimono style floaty sleeve top, floral like kimono over top with linen pants or leggings. There's also some really cute nowadays like yoga flares that are like a soft, I don't even know what they are. Probably maybe like bamboo or something like that. So like flares with a matching shirt, t-shirt, crop top again. And you can also like think outside the box. So sometimes things like a flowy dress or like jeans can look really cool in a yoga pose, because there's that like unexpected juxtaposition that again gives you visual interest and can just make your photos like really stand out. So you can definitely think outside the box. There's also yoga jumpsuits that are really cool. So like a one piece, they also can help to like show off your body and your shape in the poses.
So now that we have the list of like, here are some things that we could wear, what about the planning? Like I once did a yoga photo shoot and I remember getting there and thinking, like the photographer, it was a large group of us doing this. So I don't know why it was a shock, but he was like, what pose would you like to be in? And I thought, oh, I hadn't even thought of that. And he said, choose 2 poses. And there was so much pressure then. Like there are so many yoga poses that I love. Yeah. Like which ones should we do?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a few things to keep in mind when you are planning. So take some time and like think about the big picture. Who are you as a person and as a yoga teacher? What's important to you? What kind of yoga do you teach? Where do you teach? Who's your ideal client? What is your brand? What's your intention for the photo shoot? Is it because you're building a new website? Is it for social media? Are you making posters? Are you making postcards to give out? Like think about how you're going to use them.
Connected yoga teachers, I'm jumping in here for a moment because I want to talk websites. First question for you, do you have a website? I think every single yoga teacher who is offering online classes, workshops, or trainings needs a website. Also, if you are a yoga teacher who wants to get more students coming to your class or who wants to get booked to teach in other locations, a website is really an amazing way to do that. So, if you don't teach online and you have full classes and you don't want to travel anywhere or make collaborations with other locations, you might not need a website, But when a yoga teacher tells me that they need a website and they want it to be fast and easy, or if they come to me and tell me that they're overwhelmed with their existing website and they don't want to worry about coding, design, and the tech side of things, I always tell them about OfferingTree. Now, some yoga teachers are like me. They already have a website. My website is on WordPress, but I still use and love OfferingTree because it allows people to sign up for my classes, workshops, and trainings on there, get reminder emails, fill out my waiver online, pay, get reminder texts, see things in their time zone, and get automatic Zoom links. My website won't do that for them. So if you are needing a website or needing a simpler website, or if you have online offerings, check out OfferingTree. We have a special discount for you because you are a podcast listener. That's over at offeringtree.com/Shannon.
For example, if you are building a new website, you might need a hero shot that's in landscape orientation that has lots of white space because you might need to put, your graphic designer might need to put like text on top of that. So it's going to be really important that you communicate to your photographer you need at least a few photos like that. So yeah, think about what you're using them for. And then a question that I get is, do I need a list of poses to bring with me to our session? And I would say, yes, it does really help because like you said, sometimes when you're being photographed, most of us don't love to be photographed and most of us feel awkward. And so inevitably you'll have this like panicked moment where you go, oh my God, I'm having my photo taken. I'm a yoga teacher. What even is yoga? What pose should I do? And you just forget. You forget what poses even exist.
It's so true. It's so true. I feel like I've had this experience.
Yeah, we all have. So it does help to have a list, and you want to refer to your list, but at the same time, you want to go with the flow. So you don't want to be too rigid with it, but it definitely does help. So again, think about what kind of teacher you are. While you practice, like in the weeks leading up to your photo session, just kind of notice what are my favorite poses? What am I drawn to? What do I think will photograph well? What poses do I hate? You're not going to do those. And if you're a vinyasa teacher or a hatha yoga teacher, you're probably going to want a combination of standing poses, balances, back bends, forward folds, floor-based poses, even shavasana. But if you only teach yin or you only teach restorative or you only teach prenatal, then that's going to be different. You're still going to have a list of poses, but you don't need standing poses. All of your poses, let's say if you're a restorative teacher, you're going to be using lots of props and all of your poses are going to be close to the floor. Something else that you can do, and again, I get this question, is like, should I make a Pinterest board? Or you can kind of do it on Instagram as well now, where you can save in a collection. So it's kind of like Pinterest. And you don't have to, but you absolutely can. And it can help you to refine your vision and see what you're drawn to, what vibe you like, what poses and angles and lighting that you are drawn to. And that can help to guide your planning of the session. But the one thing that I will say with that is that you don't want to just kind of show up with saved photos and just try to copy them because they're never going to look the same. And then you're probably just going to be disappointed. So again, it's a good guide, but you don't want to like hold on to it too rigidly.
Yeah. How does that feel on the other end? Like as the photographer, when someone shows up with a Pinterest board, is it a bit like,
well, it depends how they are approaching it. Because if they're showing me a Pinterest board and they're like, it's all like details. And they're like, I love all of these details. And all the photos are black and white. Then I go, okay, I'm always going to give color photos, but I'm going to also probably give them more black and white. And I'm going to take more detail photos. But if they're like, I want this exact photo and this exact photo and this exact photo, you're not the same person. You don't have the same body. We're probably not in the same location. You're probably not wearing the exact same thing. The lighting is not going to be exactly the same. So it's not going to look the same. And I don't want you as my client to be disappointed. I want you to embrace who you are, and we'll end up with beautiful photos of you no matter what.
So you mentioned like a lot of yoga teachers hesitate like having their photo taken. A lot of people do in general. Um,
Yeah.
what helps us then when we're feeling uncomfortable? Let's say we're outside, people are looking at us, we have had to change our outfit, we're like in a park, we're doing some yoga, we feel really awkward. Is there anything that can help?
Yeah. Depending on where you are, music can really help. If you're in a studio, that's really easy. You can just, there's probably going to be speakers and you can put on a playlist. So, but if you're outside, depending on where you are, you might be able to bring like a little portable speaker and you can play one of your favorite playlists that just makes you feel happy and makes you feel good. And here's the best news about yoga photos. I know, like I said, almost everyone feels awkward in front of the camera and doesn't like having their photo taken. But when you're getting yoga photos taken, you're not just standing and staring at a camera and smiling and going, what do I do with my hands? Like that's the most awkward thing I think about getting a photo. So you never know what to do with your hands, but you're just doing yoga. So it's actually way easier and smoother and more pleasant than you would expect. So yes, if you're at a park and people are watching you, first of all, they're probably not like, they might like glance over at you, but I've never had anyone just sit and stare at an entire session as it's taking place. So that, yeah, they might look over at you and whatever you're doing your thing. And I like the way that I'll usually start my sessions is I'll get again, depending on, let's say they're a vinyasa teacher, I'll get them to do a couple of sun salutes to warm up. And then I'm just shooting as they're doing their sun salutes. And then I might say a couple of times, like pause so I can get a different angle or get a close up. And then after that, then we'll move into like their list of poses, but you know what you're doing and you're not just standing and staring and you're going to be moving a lot and you're doing yoga poses. So you're not just staring at the camera. You might be sometimes, but most of the time you're not going to be. So it's actually really not as bad as you think. That's the message I want to send to yoga teachers. It can actually be so fun. Like almost everyone tells me afterwards, when they show up, they're like, oh, I hate having my photo taken. And the first 10 minutes, you might feel really awkward. But then, like, I almost promise you, by the end of it, you'll be having fun. And almost everyone says to me at the end, oh, that was way easier than I thought. That was really fun.
What about other things to bring along with us? Like, do we bring props? Do we bring our yoga mat? What about any other things?
Yes, you definitely want to bring props. They can add dimension to your photos, interest, and they can also show like a little bit more about who you are as a person and as a yoga teacher. So if you do bring props, though, make sure that they are things that are true to you. Like I've had people bring tarot cards, and because they love that, and so that's great. That shows off an aspect of your personality. So things like singing bowls, crystals, a favorite journal or favorite yoga book, mala beads, a candle, scarves. Those can be lovely. And you don't want to have too much because it will just become overwhelming, but having some things like that where you're just like swapping out mala beads in one photo and a scarf in another, like that can be nice. And when you're inside, like say you're at a studio, we're often creating little vignettes. So we'll pull in, usually there's plants, so I'll usually have some photos where we set up like a couple of plants and then some crystals in front, and then you'll be in front of that, but it's just kind of some nice background texture, and then we'll just play with that. Whereas if you're outside, well, actually we do use like singing bowls in front of the yoga mat, like in a little group of 3, that can be really pretty. I would say to have a mix of yoga mat and not yoga mat, because sometimes it looks really beautiful to be in a yoga pose and not have a yoga mat, especially if you're on a beach in the sand. I find it can look a bit strange to have a yoga mat. Like it's just it doesn't quite fit. And it does look really cool to, even if you're on the sand, like I have beautiful photos of people in like Paschimottanasana or Janushirasana, just right in the sand, and they have sandy feet, and I have a close-up of their like sandy toes, and it looks really cool. So yeah, mix of yoga mat and not yoga mat. And one thing to remember with your yoga mat is that, because a lot of people have black yoga mats and will wear black yoga leggings, and that doesn't work great because it all just blends in and you can't tell where the person's legs are. So just make sure that your bottoms and your yoga mat are a different color.
Oh, that's such a good tip. I've seen that before. We're
Yes.
like, oh, wait, we need a red mat for these black pants.
Yeah.
What about hair and makeup? And I really hesitate because right in this moment, I've decided in my life, I no longer want to wear makeup. I think maybe ever.
Oh, good on you. I've been grappling with this myself, and I went through chemo about a year ago, so I'm dealing with my hair growing back, and it's so tied up with our identity and as women, just how we feel about ourselves. And yeah, it's such interesting and nuanced topic. If you don't wear makeup, if you hate makeup, you don't have to wear makeup. I'm not going to say you have to wear makeup for photos. You don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. If you are a person who wears makeup, then I would recommend wearing some for your photos. And I have a mix with my clients. Some people get their makeup done and love it, and it helps them to feel better. And when you feel confident, I do think that comes across in your photos. And it also might, like you were saying before, tips to feel better when you're actually in the moment having your photo taken. If you feel like I look hot, then that's going to come across in your photos, and you might enjoy it more and it might feel easier to you. But you can also do it yourself. Absolutely. A little bit of mascara goes a long way. I have 2 kids. So I'm always tired. So some mascara and a bit of blush just makes me look more awake. And in photos, the crazy thing is that like what looks in person in real life, like an insane amount of makeup, doesn't in photos. It looks pretty normal in photos. Like I recently had a client where I thought, oh my gosh, she's wearing a lot of makeup. And then I was editing the photos and you can't tell. She looks great. Oh, and hair. It's pretty unusual that people will get their hair professionally done. You totally could if you wanted to. And then if you have long hair, I will have people change it up, because for some poses, it will look really beautiful to have your hair down. But for some poses, it looks way better to have it up out of your face. So for example, like I find images in profile, like camel photographs really beautifully. And I think camel looks better if you have long hair, if it's up, like in a bun. And if you're outside, like it's really windy in Sydney. So if you have your hair down, it might just drive you crazy because it might be in your face the whole time. So you also kind of want to think about that. Am I going to be outside in the wind? Then maybe I'll put my hair in a ponytail for most of the session. But if you always wear your hair down, then for those more like headshots, you might want to have your hair down. Think about like what you do. Or do you normally have your hair up? Do you normally wear your hair down? I don't think you need to change it. Like if you have curly hair or straight hair, just let it be. You want your photos to reflect you.
Right. So that when someone walks into your class, they don't like not recognize you all of a sudden because they've seen your website.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the same with clothes. That's the same with planning your outfits. Don't choose something that you would never wear because you think it's going to look good in photos, because the reason that you're getting yoga photos taken is for marketing. And the reason that we're marketing is because we want people to get to know, like, and trust us. And so they need to know who we are and what we teach, what we practice, what our style is. Yeah. And you can communicate all of that through your photos.
Right. Is there anything else that you think of for a photo shoot? Oh, also, I'd love for you to touch on because I was just talking with a yoga teacher this week who was doing their about page, and the photo that they chose was beautiful. It was professionally done. They were outside, but they weren't looking at the camera at all. And I said, like, on that about page, people really want to see your face. They want to see like your smiling face, or they really want to get to know you.
That is 100% true. And I do see a lot of artistic about me pages where someone is, it's like a grainy, dark black and white photo and they're looking down and you can't see them at all. And when people go to your about me page, they want to connect with you. And so that is the one place where I think eye contact and probably a smile are going to be really important. And it doesn't mean that you can't be doing a yoga pose. One of my favorite photos to get, and that often ends up on an about me page, is someone wearing yoga clothes, sitting on a mat, but not like either just sitting in sukhasana or like hero's pose, but looking at the camera and smiling, or even just sitting like not even in a yoga pose, just sitting casually, like with their legs tucked up or like one knee up, and like almost like you were going to come into a twist, but you're not twisting. You're just facing forward with your hands resting on your knee or something like that. So just like a really casual seat, but looking at the photo and smiling. You're totally right. And they also say that like for social media that there should be a photo of your face in your grid, like every 9 photos or so. Cause that's what, when you go to someone's Instagram and you see like, I think it's 9 photos at a time, maybe it's 12, but like there should be a photo of you in there so that people know who you are.
It makes total sense. I know that sometimes I like when I go to a podcast Instagram or something else, or even a yoga one, you'll see, and I think, is that the person or is that the person? Oh no, that's not. This is just like some stock photo. I really want to see.
Oh, stock photos. Yeah. Bane of my existence. No, they have their place, and it's good that they exist. And it's also good that there's becoming more diversity in stock photos. But again, stock photos are not showing you or who you are, and they're very impersonal. Like if I go to a yoga studio website and it's all stock photos, they just lose my interest immediately. If you are a yoga studio owner, I know we've been talking about yoga teachers, but you want your potential client to go to your website and see your actual studio, the environment, what the space is like, what props you have, like what the facilities are like, who works there, even like what a class looks like. If I've photographed lots of yoga studios, and we will always do a mock class so that we get also like photos of, well, in COVID days, this is a bit different, but usually photos of like hands-on assists and that kind of thing. So you just like showing people what you're about and what your studio is like. And stock photos just are not going to do that. They don't have that impact.
So true. It's so true. I saw one yoga teacher had photos that I thought like they were so beautiful. They were so artistic. And I was like, well, these look like stock photos. She's like, these are actually me. So I think there's a level of find ones that don't look like stock photos as well.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Oh, sorry. Is there anything else that you can think of that you tell the yoga teacher who's planning a photo shoot?
Yeah, there's a few more things I would say. Something that I hear a lot from yoga teachers is like, I know I need yoga photos and I want to book a session, but I'm recovering from an injury, or my practice is so simple. I can't do any advanced poses. And everything I see on Instagram is like people in scorpion pose or like crazy back bends. And I just can't do any of that. So I don't know if I should do photos, and I can't do any of that either. So I've been doing yoga for half my life, more than that at this point. And we just need to let that go, because simple poses photograph so beautifully. And we don't all have to be doing scorpion on a rock on a tropical beach somewhere to have yoga photos. So it doesn't matter what you look like. Like, again, I also hear like, oh, I just want to lose 10 pounds and then I'll do it. And it just makes me sad. I'm like, just when you want to do it, just go for it. Like, You don't have to have a super advanced practice. You don't have to look a certain way. This is about showing you, and you're beautiful just as you are. And you can do the most simple shapes. Like, some of my favorite poses that photograph so beautifully are like reverse warrior, warrior two, Baddha Konasana, Tarasana, Supta Baddha Konasana, legs up the wall. Legs up the wall makes a beautiful photo. Hero's pose. Janu Shirshasana, that's another great photo. I've got great shots of people that they use it as a headshot. So they're in Janu Shirshasana, but they're looking up at the camera and smiling. You don't have to be able to touch your nose to your knee for that to be a nice photo. And also think about your ideal client and who you're trying to attract, because if you do have a super advanced practice and all the photos that you're posting are like arm balances and back bends, that might just be intimidating to your potential students.
This is reminding me of, I went to a website once and it was like yoga for back care, and the person was in like a full wheel. And I just thought, people are going to look at this and think, yeah, I can't do
They're
that.
going to go, no, I'm not going to that class.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
not for me. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
if they're like, I teach prenatal, if they're looking for prenatal yoga and all the photos that they see are like, yeah, pregnant women in wheel, I would never teach wheel in a prenatal yoga class. But I do see that. And if I was pregnant and I saw that, I would click away. That's not the class for me. I'm not going to go there.
Right. You're like, I just want some help, like with the swelling in my feet and sleeping.
Yeah, like I want to see someone in legs up the wall or in Supta Baddha Konasana with a bolster and like 15 pillows.
Exactly.
And for like, you teach pelvic health, like someone who's struggling with pelvic health concerns doesn't want to see someone in a handstand.
Yeah.
That's not going to speak to them.
No, it's so true. So I love this, that our, that photo on the About Me is about that connection. And the other photos are really part of that messaging and that branding. And we're sending a message of what our yoga is like, what our classes are like, who our students are. This is fantastic. How,
exactly.
How do our connected yoga teachers learn more from you? How do they connect with you? How do they find you online? Maybe there's some in your area and maybe they want to book a photo shoot.
I would love that. My website is my name. It's Gabriela Fearn, www.gabrielafearn.com.au. My name is spelled strangely though. So Gabriela has one L and Fearn is Fearn. So it's like the plant, but with a silent A. On Instagram, I'm at Gabriela Fearn. Again, one L, Fearn. Those are my website and Instagram are the best places. And can I just say one other thing?
Yeah. I will also say before you do that, we will link in the show notes. If anyone's like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to spell that, we'll have it in the show notes. So tell us, what's the other thing?
No, so it's a tip. So one other question that I get is, should I bring someone along? Like if this is a yoga teacher who's booking a session just for them, should I bring a friend along? And my answer is maybe. Sometimes it's really helpful and sometimes it can be not quite as helpful. So if you bring a friend along, they can help with practical things, like especially if we're outside carrying things like carrying the yoga mat, carrying outfits and props and stuff to the different locations within the same location. And they can, if you do bring a friend, make sure they're a yogi or a yoga teacher, because then they can also help with your alignment. So if they, it's just another set of eyeballs on you to say like, oh, bend your right knee more or lift up your back arm, that kind of thing. But it can also be like another set of eyeballs on you. And so just think about whether that's going to make you feel comfortable or uncomfortable. And, also sometimes like just make sure that you choose the right person, because if they have a lot of opinions, they might just like slow down the process by getting involved, and kind of can end up off track. But the great thing about having somebody come with you is that you can get photos where you are being the teacher. So even with one person, you can get that person doing poses, and you can be like doing hands-on assists, and that makes great photos. Or you can just be, standing near them and like gesturing, because I know in these days we can't always do hands-on assists anymore, but like you can kind of communicate like lifting your chin, for example, you could like put your fingers just under your chin. So yeah, getting someone to model as the student can be good to, again, just get some more variation in your photos.
That's a great tip. And pick the friend who's not going to slow things down or not be too critical. That's really important.
Yeah, pick the right person.
Yeah, someone who's going to make you laugh and smile there and be natural. That's a good plan as well for the people who teach one-on-one yoga as well, because it can show that dynamic in your photos. This has been so helpful. It's not high on my list to like get photos done, but I am thinking, okay, maybe
you should do it. I'm going to be in Vancouver in August if you want to fly across the country.
Oh gosh, I really like Vancouver.
It's pretty nice. Nice in summer.
You never know. It'd be so fun to connect in person.
Actually, one of my best friends lives in Toronto, so I would love to go to Toronto.
Well, if you're around this area, let me know.
I'll let you know. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gabby.
You're so welcome. I hope this was helpful. I just wanted it to be like just full of tips that can help people, because most of us yoga teachers are going to have photos taken at some point.
I think it's going to be so helpful. And if our Connected Yoga Teacher listeners think, well, I learned something the hard way, or I learned this and it worked really well, post it in our comments of that, and we can all continue the conversation. Yeah.
Yes, that would be awesome. I would, love. One last tip I'll leave you with is at the end of the session, take a bath, because you're just going to be so sore because you do pretty much everything on your good side and your body will feel really wonky afterwards. So end the day with a long soak in a bathtub if you have one.
That's so good. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you so much, Gabby. I feel like this episode, more than anything, inspired me to do a photo shoot, and that takes a lot. I feel like I just do the work and I don't really worry about photos. But this episode motivated me, and in a way that really helps communicate the work that I do and the people that I like to work with. So thank you so much for all of this information today. Connected Yoga Teachers, I would love to keep this conversation going. If you have questions after listening to today's podcast, or if you have tips and ideas that make photo shoots easier for you, let's continue this conversation either in our Facebook group, or you can send us an email, or you can leave us a voicemail. We have a button on our website. Definitely, if you are not already a member of the Connected Yoga Teacher Facebook group, jump over in there. We try and continue the conversation after each and every podcast episode. You can go to our website, theconnectedyogateacher.com, where there's a button right there on the homepage to join our Facebook group. A shout out of thanks to Amy from the US who left a review. Amy Peel, thank you so much. Amy says, Shannon offers such great content. Love what I'm learning from her. Amy, thank you for leaving this because it helps other yoga teachers hear about our podcast. I like to hear from our listeners, and just thanks for taking the time to leave us a review. If you're wondering how to leave a review, or if you want to find a link or go back to an episode and see the notes that we take for you, they're super in-depth. For today's episode, that's all over at theconnectedyogateacher.com/294. If you have not gone over to our website, make sure you do that. Head on over there. We also have a search bar, so if you're looking for anything, type it in the search. That's what I do when I'm looking for previous podcast episodes. I'm like, I can't remember what number each episode. We're at episode 294 now, so I can't remember all of the numbers for each podcast that we've done, but I can use the search on our website. If you want to hang out in real time, remember I said that we are having a live Yoga for Pelvic Health workshop that's happening October the 24th. And this goes along really well with a 6-part Yoga for Pelvic Health series that I taught, where we're doing a lot of yoga. The workshop is going to be more of the theory of like, why are we teaching these poses? Why this breath, or why this movement? And what is the information, that we need to know as yoga teachers about the pelvis? So if you want to sign up for that and everything else in our library, head on over to pelvichealthprofessionals.com. A little insider information, we are going to be talking about hypermobility and how that impacts the pelvis with Libby Hinesley. And then we also are going to be closing out the year talking about yoga for menopause. These are questions that we get all the time from podcast listeners, questions around hypermobility and also menopause. And so we have 2 amazing calls. That's also inside of Pelvic Health Professionals. November the 3rd, I am super excited that Jessica and Alyssa, both registered dietitians who are educated in disordered eating, and also they're both yoga teachers, they're going to be coming and doing a workshop for us. This is a must for all yoga teachers. We have had so many questions and comments and so much feedback when we did our anti-diet episodes, if you look back the last 2 episodes. And so it's time to learn more as yoga teachers so that we can create safer spaces for yoga students. Let's take diet culture out of yoga. Let's get it the heck out of there because it's actually the opposite of yoga. And let's make sure that our students are not finding harm when they come to our yoga space. So to sign up for that, go to theconnectedyogateacher.com/anti-diet. And because you're listening all the way here to the end of the podcast, I want to tell you what's happening next week. So next Monday, our podcast drops. And I have a very special episode with a very special friend. Betty Welsh is going to be on the podcast talking about making money teaching yoga. And I have to tell you the backstory on this episode, but you're going to have to wait until next week to find that out. We have been waiting to release this episode since before the pandemic, and I'll tell you why next week. Thank you so much to our team, Suzanne, Crunch, and Sinead for making today's podcast possible. And also, thank you, dear listener. You are what makes this really possible. Your support, you telling other yoga teachers about this podcast, you listening and taking the time to be here all the way to the end. It is an absolute honor to get to hang out with you week after week, or maybe this is your first time listening. Thank you. It means so much. And until we meet again next week, I would love to know what you are doing to stay connected to yourself, your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up.